The NBA Finals are set to begin Thursday. Remember the NBA playoffs? Yeah, it's been a minute since those things have been happening, but the Celtics and Mavs will tip off the finals on Thursday night. A month ago, when the Thunder and the Mavs began their Western Conference semifinal, who'd have thought the Mavs would be the West's rep in the finals? Not me. But since the Thunder gave the Mavs a better test than the Timberwolves, and now that Dallas is playing for a title, does all that mean anything for Oklahoma City? We'll talk about the impact on the Thunder and have a little NBA Finals preview with our good friend and Tulsa World columnist Berry Tramel now on the Jenni Carlson Show. But quickly before we get to that, I want to encourage you to subscribe first to my YouTube channel at Jenni-Carlson. Just hit that subscribe button. It helps me a bunch. And then go to my Substack, jennicarlson.substack.com. You can support my work there with a paid subscription or subscribe for free. Either helps me out, so subscribe today. Well, Barry, hey, the NBA Finals, like I said, seems like a minute since we've even had an NBA playoff game, but you had a piece on the TulsaWorld.com, in the Tulsa World as well, I think, about the Mavs, which really it was a lot about the Thunder. But I mean, I wrote about this too after Sam Presti had his end of season press conference. But I have to think with the way the Mavs finished off the Timberwolves, now heading into the finals, people talking about how great they are. Seems like that Western Conference semifinal performance against the Mavs just continues to. We talked about this before, you and I. Does it make Oklahoma City feel better? I don't know. But it seems to add more and more context to where the Thunder is, at least. Isn't that sort of the bottom line to this whole thing?
Yeah, I would say so. Now, make Oklahoma City feel better, make the Thunder feel better, I don't know. I think it makes them look better.
Yeah.
I think they shape up better when you look at, when you come out of that series, you're thinking, this was opportunity lost. This was a case of, other people, as many Western teams as you've passed, others have passed you, Minnesota, Dallas. But then we have that Timberwolf Maverick West final, and dominant by the Mavs, winning close games, giving up the, gentleman's sweep 3-0, and then win 4-1, and Game 5's a total rout. And you look at it, and the Thunder fared much better against Dallas than Minnesota fared against Dallas. Now, playoff matchups, they're hard to compare because of individual matchups, stylistic changes, those kinds of things. But the truth is, if you power ranked the teams in the Western Conference playoffs to this point, you'd have Dallas 1, the Thunder 2. And I think the way the Thunder played Dallas, same amount of points over 6 games, one blowout in the series by the Thunder. Thunder looks pretty good when you look it up. I don't know if Dallas is going to win the NBA title, but if they do, even more bonus points for OKC.
You mentioned power rankings in the West, and that brings up an interesting question I was going to ask you about. As we look at the West, before these playoffs started, I think even though the Thunder was the number 1 seed, there's probably a thought that, they were maybe 4 or 5. Now that we've sort of seen these Western Conference playoffs play out, thinking about next year, I know we don't know draft picks, we don't know offseason acquisitions, but is Dallas number 1 in the West now? Has Denver fallen into, somewhere closer to 4 or 5? How would you sort of rank the West heading into next season?
Well, I'm going to need to see what the rosters look like, for one thing. And I don't know that it matters. How would we have ranked the West a year ago at this time? How would we have ranked the West on October 1st this time last year? How would we have ranked the West at the trade deadline earlier this year? I mean, Dallas was 29 and 23, I think, at the trade deadline, in 8th place in the West. Nobody even considered the Mavs as an NBA finalist contender. They make the deals, they revamp their team, they catch fire, here they go.
Yeah.
So the NBA changes at such a fast rate. But clearly the Thunder's on the incline. Clearly the Thunder is ascending quickly. Other teams have done the same. Minnesota, Dallas, Denver has kept that high status, winning the 23 title. But the Thunder will be among the contenders, no doubt about it. The question is, who's going to join them? Will it be a crowded potentially crowded race for the West title in next season. It always is. How crowded will it be? Will there be 4 teams? Will there be 5? Will there be 8? I mean, Dallas came from nowhere, from way back in the pack. It's like a horse race. Mavericks won the West from way back when when you're on the far turn. So way too early to know exactly what it's going to look like. But the Thunder's in great position. Great roster, young, lots of assets. No reason why the Thunder can't be there coming around the last turn in great shape to win it.
Well, you said you want to know what the rosters look like. I'm going to put you on the spot. The draft's coming up here later this month. Is there a player out there that, the Thunder's got the 12th pick? Who knows? Maybe they move up, but let's say they stand pat. Who do they draft? Who should they draft? Or is there a prototype of maybe what they should be looking for in this draft?
Oh, I have no idea. So many international players are now involved, and I know zero things about the internationals, don't claim to. But I will say this. Sign me up for Cody Williams, Santa Clara Williams, little brother. As far as I'm concerned, this Thunder team cannot have too many Jaylin Williams, and they cannot have too many Williams, period. They cannot have too many brother combinations. I mean, when you have 2 Jaylin Williams on the roster, the confusion just explodes, and I'm all for confusion and chaos and slapstick fun. So give me, we got 2 Jaylin Williams, we got 2 other guys named Williams, and one of them is the brother of the other Jaylin Williams. And oh, by the way, out there potentially in the second round, not that the Thunder have a pick right now, but out there in the second round, maybe in the free agent market, undrafted free agent market, Auburn's Jaylin Williams. Now, how much fun would that be? Would that be the funnest thing of all time? The Thunder go to camp with 3 Jaylin Williams? I got to believe that the Thunder would have the busiest training camp in the history of NBA media, with people coming in to write about the 3 Jaylin Williams.
And I think the Jaylin Williams that's draftable this year, his name is spelled like the Santa Clara Jaylin Williams.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Just adding more confusion to the whole thing, spelling exactly the same. What a crazy thing that would be. If the draft, because of moving around, is a little bit unknown, free agents, possible trade targets, and reasonable. I mean, I think you and I, Barry, are in agreement here. You can't go, breaking up the core. I mean, let's not. The Thunder doesn't need to do anything crazy. It doesn't need to trade away players that are, obviously helpful. I mean, Lou Dort's not going anywhere. We know the core guys. They're not going anywhere. Reasonably, though, is there anybody out there that you feel like the Thunder could be targeting, should be targeting as it relates to free agency or trades?
Well, there are 2 major guys I've always wanted them to go after. Can't go after both, but go after either. One's much tougher to get now than he was, say, 2 months ago. And that's Naz Reid of the Timberwolves. I don't think Minnesota wants to trade him. I don't think they will trade him. But they could, because they got all kinds of salary cap issues. And if you give them a lot of tools that help them alleviate that crush, maybe they'd think about it. But the other is Mikal Bridges at Brooklyn. Just a wonderful all-around player. Naz Reid's the big shooting or outside shooting big man that the Thunder needs. I also think Bridges is just an all-around player who just adds to this arsenal of guys like SGA and Santa Clara and Aaron Wiggins and all kinds of guys that just Swiss Army knives that do everything. If you get a team full of those guys, opponents just have to throw up their hands. Both would cost a lot. Both would cost probably Josh Giddey, probably multiple first-round draft picks, and probably another not a throw-in, a valuable hand, somebody like an Aaron Wiggins. But I do think either one of those things would make the Thunder really, really tough going into the 24-25 season.
Hey, before we talk NBA Finals, I wanted to ask you something that you mentioned in your post about this at TulsaWorld.com. You were talking about how, we went from now it's been a month plus ago, about how Anthony Edwards was the next coming of Michael Jordan, but now we're talking about, is Luka Doncic the best player on the planet? So obviously things can move pretty fast when it comes to, proclamations about player greatness. But you drilled down into the numbers of Luka and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander when those two were on the court together. And obviously Luka's getting lots of love right now, and rightfully so. But what should people remember about what we saw when those two were on the court together?
Well, Luka Doncic might be the best player in the world. I don't know. I mean, everybody said it was Jokic, 4 weeks ago, and it probably still is Jokic. But if you want to vote, Doncic was unbelievable against the Timberwolves. So he might have been the best player on the planet. He was not the best player in the Western Conference semifinals. That was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They went head-to-head, sometimes covering each other, usually not. But if you look at it wasn't even close. Nobody came out of that series thinking, wow, look at Doncic. I don't know that anybody came out of it saying, wow, look at SGA, because SGA is not flash. His production is high level and very, very even. He doesn't have monster games. Bad game for SGA is 27 points on 11 of 23 shooting. That's a bad game for SGA. A great game for SGA is 39 points on 15 of 22 shooting. I mean, his variance is unbelievably low. So, but if you look at his numbers through that, he was trumping Doncic in virtually everything except assists and rebounds, and he was close in both. Oh, yeah, and he blocked, I think, 14 shots in the series.
Yeah.
His turnovers were incredibly low compared to Doncic. Shooting was way more consistent. Scored more points than Doncic. He's just a wonderful player. He just played the way we always see him play. He's more consistent than even Kevin Durant, which I'm not sure we ever thought we'd see. But he's far more consistent than Durant. Durant had bad games. SGA has like 4 bad games this season. So same thing in the West Finals. He was remarkably consistent. He gave the Thunder a chance to win. And if the Thunder had won that, everybody would be talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. To the victors go the spoils. We know that. Doncic went on to the West Finals. Unbelievable performance. Deserves everything he gets. He is a transcendent player. Dallas, luckiest team on earth that not 1, not 2, but 3 teams passed on him in the NBA draft of a few years ago. I think that was the 18 draft. But Dallas got him. They've ridden him to the NBA Finals, and now they might win it. So power to Doncic, power to the Dallas, but don't forget SGA.
Definitely not. Well, hey, let's talk finals. Dallas playing better, has played better than Boston in these playoffs. We've seen Boston have some clunkers, and Dallas has been just pretty darn consistent in how good they've been. Does any of that matter heading into the NBA Finals?
I think it's all matchups. Dallas was a bad matchup for the Thunder. The way they could protect the rim, the way they would allow the Thunder to drive. Most teams try to shut off the drive because that's the Thunder's lifeblood. Dallas was okay with it because they had those 2 big guys inside. Boston is a difficult matchup for Dallas because of the way they play, particularly if Kristaps Porzingis is healthy. Boston switches all over. Boston has 5 outside shooters on the court most of the time. Dallas was able to play off of Giddey, put those centers on Giddey, get them closer to the rim. Can't do that against Boston, which has Porzingis and Al Horford. So it's going to be a difficult matchup for Dallas. I think Boston is equipped to take advantage of that. I still think it'll be a good series, but so much of NBA basketball is about the matchups, and I think Boston matches up with Dallas much better than did Minnesota or the Thunder.
Yeah, I like a lot of those defensive guys they can throw out there. Just
unbelievable defensive team. I mean, when somebody like Tatum and Brown are not even your 2 best defenders out on the court, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you got Derek White and Drew Holiday. That's an unbelievably. We spent the last 2 weeks talking about our best backcourt in history, offensive backcourt, Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. Boston might be one of the best defensive backcourts when you look at Drew Holiday and Derek White. So, yeah, it's a tough matchup for Dallas.
Yeah, Barry, it comes to my mind that, when Thunder Media Day happened, I asked several guys about who's the toughest defender they've ever faced in the league, and a bunch of guys mentioned Drew Holiday. So just a stacked defensive team. You mentioned Jason Tatum. We've talked about Luka. Is this a dumb question of who would you rather have in the NBA Finals? Would you rather have Luka? Would you rather have Tatum? I mean, they bring their teams with them, I guess. But is it of course Luka, or is there an argument to be made for Jason Tatum?
Well, Tatum's a better defender, but that's about as far as I'd probably go. Doncic is a transcendent player. Tatum's unbelievably accomplished. I mean, he's a multiple-time first-team All-NBA player, so he's an absolutely qualified superstar. There's not a question about this guy. He's one of the 5, 6, 7 best players in the world. But Doncic is one of the 2 or 3 best. So it's a small difference, but it is a difference. I would take, to me, the difference is probably that Doncic is more likely to just go off. 20 points in the first, 8 minutes, 9 minutes in Game 5 against Minnesota, something like that. Tatum can do that, but Doncic does it more often. So I would favor Doncic on the superstar realm in this one. But don't sleep on Jason Tatum. He's a wonderful player. He's basically the Thunder. He's basically Boston's SGA. They're similar in age, not similar in styles, but similar in age, in production, in just sort of stability, the kind of superstar you want to build around. Boston's in great shape, not only with that great roster, but with Jason Tatum.
Yeah, he's a guy that I've loved since basically draft night. He was very human. His mom, just the whole thing. I think I would love to see him play in Oklahoma City the same way I always wanted to see Al Horford play in Oklahoma City. Now, you disagreed with me on that, but I always liked Al Horford's style. Glad he was here for a year, even though it was that shutdown post-COVID pandemic, or, kind of later in the pandemic. But anyway, love Jason Tatum. But yeah, Luka can go nuclear at any point. All right, let's do predictions. Who you got in this one, Barry? It sounds like you're leaning Celtics, but what do you think about this series?
Yeah, I just it goes back to the matchups. I like the Celtics. I love their team. Just one of the most well-rounded lineups you'll see. If Porzingis is healthy, now it gets a lot more dicey if he's not healthy. But with Porzingis, with the dual star tandem of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, if Drew Holiday's your 5th best starter, you got yourself a team, because he's one of the most valuable players of the NBA in the last 10 years. Just a bedrock of a character, bedrock of a player. Wonderful defender, and he can score on occasion in high dosages. So just a wonderful player is Drew Holiday. Derek White is a budding star. The matchups, I think, favored Boston, the styles. I'm going to take the Celtics in 6th, would get their first championship since 2008. How's this? Their 2nd championship since the 80s. So when you think of the Celtics as one of the all-time, since Larry Bird's days, they've won 1 title. So I think it becomes 2.
Yeah, I'm going Celtics as well. And I think it's a minimum 6-game series, but I could see this being a 7-gamer. Just the way that Dallas has played. I've been really impressed by them. We don't talk a whole lot about their defense, but they've defensively been pretty darn good in these playoffs. So I think it does favor Boston, but I could definitely see the Mavs pushing them even to that 7th game. So I think it should be a great NBA Finals. Starts Thursday. We'll continue to check in and talk more about that, but that's all the time we've got now. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, my Substack. You can subscribe for free in both places, or support my work at Substack for as little as $8 a month. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.